You to come in.
Should I just log off, leave the meeting?
Hello, everyone. How are you this evening? This is Michael Gibson. Sorry we're a little late getting on schedule. Had a microphone problem. I couldn't get it to stop echoing, and I think I realized I just needed to switch the drivers. Sorry about that. I got plenty of people helping me too, so hope all is well. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, and I want to tell you a little bit about her in Arrow first and in norm therapy. Eve Kaniaru from Kenya, from Nairobi, Kenya. She's on with us tonight, and we're going to be talking about the differences between abuse care and mental health care and a few other topics that are very dear to most of our listeners. But also, we're going to talk about life itself. Here's a young woman who's from Africa who has a very mature set of principles by which she lives, but also a great deal of character and maturity to go with it. And I'm very proud to have her as a part of our team. She came on, I think, working with human resources in our organization, if I remember correctly. And then she just quickly moved into the norm therapy department, and she's been one of our stellar and star norm therapists. But also, she is a back office guru in helping us with many other topics. So I'm very proud to announce that Eve is going to be on our show tonight. I want to tell you all something first before we bring Eve on board. Norm Therapy is a for profit company, and its mission is to uh, serve Arrow, at least for now. So Arrow can provide services to the world at either reduced prices with grants or at sometimes free for indigent people. So our norm therapy sessions as well as our training can fall under those auspices, but not always. We do offer four pay sessions with norm therapists, but we also offer the same thing with training if you want to become a norm therapist. Most therapies, if you will, from my last count, about 5 to 6 million people in the entire world are mental health care therapists, certified, registered therapists, about 5 or 6 million. And that's not enough to handle not even 16% of all of the necessary mental health care patients in the world. So they're very understaffed and they're also extremely underpaid. But what we've found with norm therapy and helping people get better is they oftentimes, once they are removed from those abusive circumstances, they're oftentimes made better as a result. They experience a little bit more life without the pressure and the hell of having someone beat down on them, denigrate them, reduce them to a lower level of existence, especially if they're narcissists or sociopaths. That's what we've been finding. People not automatically get better, they just resume the life they had, if any at all, prior to having that person in their life, if that person is their trigger or the things that they do are their triggers. Oftentimes, we meet women and men who've been in relationships their entire life, and every single relationship they had was with a narcissist. And they keep wondering, why do I have this sign on my forehead that says, date me, know me, and treat me poorly? Because if that's all you know, that's all you can do. So you can go into a room of 100 men or women and select whatever person you want, and quite often you're going to select the wrong person for you every time because you don't know what that other criteria is all about. You don't know how to relate to it. And you don't know how to identify it. But when you do see a narcissist and you see that certain smile or that smirk, or you hear that love bombing or all the other things that you're so accustomed to and receiving, that's why you'll gravitate more to those instances. And we teach people how to recognize those at norm therapy, those kinds of people, but also how to overcome those quagmires and pitfalls in which they always seem to find themselves. We'll talk more about that. But right now, I'd like to bring on Eve. Eve is from Nairobi, Kenya, and it's late there, so we want to get her as fresh as we possibly can on this podcast. Eve, how are you this evening, Eve? Good to see you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How have you?
I think
Hi,
you're on mute.
everyone. Can you hear me now?
I think you're muted. I can't hear a word you're saying. You can. Then maybe I need to check my thingies to see what's going on here. Uh, but go ahead, introduce yourself, and then I'll. Wow, that's interesting. Some some problems today.
Hear me now.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything Eve has to say today over this line.
Okay. Can
There
you
we
hear me
go. Let
now?
me see if I can get
Can you hear me
back
now?
and get me back on. Microphone. Okay, 1 second. Say something now, Eve. I think I got you.
Hi, Michael.
Hi,
Hi.
Michael.
I have you. Yes, please speak to us. I have you. I have you. I'm going to turn the volume down just a little bit so it's not that high and echoing. How's that?
I can hear you clearly.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm really trying to figure out these. Sometimes when you update your computer, it it just the drivers just take on all kinds of characteristics you don't even understand. Am I still echoing?
No, I'm fine, but I'll have a little bit of echo on my side, so I'm not too sure whether it's also on my side.
It could be, but as long as the audience can hear it, that's all that matters.
Okay.
These technical difficulties, I don't think I can overcome them while we're on. I think that, yeah. So tell us, how was your day today, Eve?
It was fantastic. A friend of mine from South Africa visited me, so we spent a little time with her. Yay. Can you hear me now? I can't hear.
Yes, I hear you. I'm just going to put you on mute until until it's my turn to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start again. I had a lovely day today. A friend of mine from South Africa visited me because we haven't seen each other for at least 3 years. So she's just moved in Kenya. So we spent time catching up and was looking forward for this session because I'm looking forward to different topics we're going to discuss today.
What did you discuss?
Well, it's either, so I used to work with her in hospitality industry. So we discussed, the old days where we used to work in different restaurants, catching up with about friends, about each other. So it was great to catch up.
So you guys went to school together.
No, we worked together. So one of the few restaurants that worked in South Africa. So that's how I met.
I I got you 100%. I am trying to work the mute thing. Then I got somebody in my ear. It's just messing things up. So I'm just going to stop talking and just start when you stop and hope we'll muddle our way through this. I pray.
We'll try.
Okay, so how's your family doing?
My
I
family
understand
is
you guys had
great.
some scares as of late. How's your family doing?
My family is doing great.
Huh?
We're taking one day at a time. There's good days, there's bad days, like any other situation. But take one day at a time.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about your dad with the audience so they'll know?
So my dad had a stroke last year. So yes, so it was a huge change for everyone. So basically, thank goodness he's recovering right now, trying to support him the best we do. Yeah, that's why we can't complain. I would rather I would speak about myself.
Well, that anytime the health of anyone in your family is at stake, it normally changes the outcome of every circumstance in which all of you are involved. That's very healthy and normal, as a matter of fact. So I'm happy that you guys are weathering. How is he doing now?
He's doing great. Like I said, so there are good days, there are bad days, but trying to be supportive to the best of our ability.
Wonderful, and I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so tell me something else. Tell me, what brought you to Abuse Refuge Org and then later Norm Therapy?
Funny story. I don't think I even mentioned to you before. When you look at arrow, which means abuse refuge org, I thought it was meant to do with refugees. So all and behold, during the interviews, when can remember the recruiter, she detailed it's about abuse, which I was looking forward. Because a little bit about my tertiary, we were encouraged to take part in social responsibility, which is a little bit part of HR if people don't know about it. So anyway, I joined in 2020 or 2021 in February. I started off as a HR coordinator, but somehow I managed to have the recruiter role. And then because I wanted to know what norm therapy is about, I believe that for me as a recruiter as well and speaking to other people, I needed to know what it was about. So I had an interview with you and Kim, who's the current manager for norm therapy, I think. And then here I am a few years later, and I'm still growing in Arrow, and I'm currently as a hiring supervisor that I was promoted, I think 6 months to, I think somewhere in November in 2021 that I was promoted to hiring supervisor.
Well, you've been doing a great job. One of the things that I always laugh with everyone in the company about is when we get into an interview with an abuse care victim, and then how you have this very stern and old world kind of personality when you deal with people who have weaknesses. Not that you could beat them up or anything, but they know when you open your mouth to speak that you're dead serious, and they capture that rather. Well, tell us about that personality. Where does that come from?
When you speak to, you basically described my mom. I think my mom has been a teacher. She was in high school. So I think I got that from my mother, definitely. And I think we usually have a conversation. I say, Mom, I'm just like you. And she says no. So my personality, a bit of the sternness, I think comes from my mother. And the part for a little bit joking comes from my dad, because my dad is such a charmer and he's such a funny person. So there's always laughter around my dad.
Well, I know patients that we've had in the past uh, have echoed, wow, she's really straight to the point. She doesn't miss anything, and da da da. And I like to have you in the sessions with me, you and Louisa and a few other people in the sessions with me, because I'm always finding that where I miss things in those sessions, you guys actually pick up on and make sure that I capture in that exchange between our patient and ourselves. What people don't know is we have normally people in all of our sessions that are in Overwatch. Would you mind trying to explain to people what Overwatch is for the organization?
Yes, definitely. So during a session, there's usually the norm therapist who's conducting the session and is communicating with the victim or survivor. But there's always somebody at the back end who takes notes and also watches or observes, lack of a better word, what the victim or survivor is saying, is behaving, or probably missed something that probably the NTIS or the norm therapist has said. So it's basically having a third party who's the ears and eyes of the norm therapist, so that at least later, once the notes have been written, we can always refer back and communicate to the norm therapist, hey, by the way, there's something that you put a pin on it. So we can always talk about it, and probably we can discuss a particular topic once you've discussed that with the victim or survivor.
Absolutely. And here's something, another use for it, it just came to mind, is that in training we tell people and we teach them that having a Overwatch also can help newer norm therapists gain the experience they need by listening to more experienced norm therapists within sessions and then participating in that tandem effort to work with the patient. So that's something. That's another reason why we have Overwatch. So we have established that, and it's helped a lot of our norm therapists become seasoned rather quickly because they get to see very mature cases unfold and watch those remedies as well as those solutions being applied. Anyway, so I'm glad to hear that. What time is it there in Nairobi right now?
It's let me just check.
Okay, well, yeah,
7:20.
well, there's 7:20. Tell people and our listeners who've never, a lot of people have never been out of their own country, and sometimes their own state or city. So let's see if you can share a little bit about, because everybody, when you think of Kenya, you think about lions and tigers and elephants, and I've been to Kenya many times, so I know Kenya. But tell us your perception of Kenya.
Where do I
Where do
start?
I
I
start?
don't
I
think
don't
even a
think even
couple
a
of
couple of
minutes will
minutes will
do
do
justice,
justice,
but
but
it's a beautiful country that has lots of culture. We have two national languages, which is English and Swahili. It's about nature with regards to if you love your lions, like you mentioned, the big five. If you've been to Masai Mara, definitely have been there as well.
Mhm.
With regards to Nairobi is actually considered as the hub of East Africa. So we have the port in terms of technology as well. As I mentioned, culture as well. If you're interested in knowing different cultures of African cultures, a little bit history, we have four languages in terms of grouping, which is Nilotic, Semitic, Kushite, and Bantu, but also different foods as well. So I know I have a sister who's based in the US who literally comes back and say, I mean, I'm done with fast foods for US. I want food. I don't want anything. So the first thing, Kenyan people love meat. They love ugali. I don't know whether it's another word, an English word for it, so I stand corrected. So that's a little bit of homework about it. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's basically it. If you love nature, different cultures, definitely this is the place to be.
Because I remember every time I drive by the game reserve from the airport into the city, I'm always saying to myself, where are the wild animals? Where is the giraffes and all that? And and you don't really get to see them unless you go. Tell us, how do you get to see the animals there? How do you get to see them?
So definitely it just depends on what you want to see, because obviously with Masai Mara, obviously it's well known with the wild beast, because
Yes.
obviously it's not going to be, you're not going to go into the capital city and see the wild beast. No, definitely not.
Although
So
they have
Masai
this
Mara,
huge fenced-in area, I think it's on the left side as you're driving into the city. It's huge, huge game reserve, and not
it's
one animal. Like what happened?
I think probably you're referring to Nairobi National Park, which is slightly probably like 10, 15 minutes away from my house. But don't worry, there are fences that prevents the animals from crossing over. Um, but you can also go to the giraffe center. I'm sure you've seen pictures or videos of people feeding
Yeah,
the giraffes, or they're having breakfast and then you see a little long neck
take their
peeping
food.
through. Correct, correct. So it just mostly it's the national parks around Kenya. So I've mentioned Nairobi, Masai Mara is definitely a bucket list. So yeah, welcome
Okay,
to
now
Kenya.
to the serious topics. I just enjoy messing with you. So the serious topics. So tell our world, our audience that are listening, whether they listen to it today or in 5 years, based on the 21 abuses plus a few other areas that we're interested in, like PTSD, elder abuse, alcohol and drug abuse, and at norm therapy, as well as abuse refuge org. Tell our visitors and our viewers, what is abuse like in Kenya?
You know, the word abuse, it's not a word that it has a little bit of weight. And when I mean weight, it means that it's not openly discussed about. Whether it's alcohol abuse, whether it's generational, no, not generational, emotional abuse, because um, especially from a emotional abuse, some parents are hardcore and they understand that it's a way of raising children. So
Corporal.
unless you've been exposed to an area or in a conversation or whatever the case may be, or somebody is having an issue, and when they discuss about it to a friend, they say, no, no, that's not necessarily acceptable because that's their normal. But to the other person, it's not necessarily normal. So the word abuse has a lot of weight, and it takes, I think, a very brave person to actually even utter the word abuse. So I think
Different
it's
connotation.
correct, correct. It's like an elephant in the room that doesn't want to be discussed. Correct. So, and it's, I think, probably from a generation, boomers, millennials, Generation Z, depending on what generation, who are open to discuss about it within a family context. Because remember, I think Kenyan society is very conservative. So you hide away from what is happening. The person, when you go to the open spaces with different people, especially with family members, we okay. It's a
Got it.
family picture perfect, correct. But
It's pretty much
inside,
that way in the Black community in the United States as well.
okay,
It's that way, where there's a certain way you raise your kids, and it's nobody else's business. No matter what the law is, it's no one of those business. But what we're finding, because I came from a place, where I got beat. That was a part of my childhood, and in those days, it was just normal. It was the normal. So I understand about Kenya, but the other kinds of abuses like child abuse from other adults, human trafficking, financial abuse, and some of the other abuses the 21 abuses that we champion, bullying, those kinds of abuses that are inflicted by other people onto weaker people. Tell us about the incidence of that occurring in Kenya these days. Is there a need for norm therapy there?
oh, definitely. You mentioned culture because culture is one has much more weight
Mhm.
as opposed to abuse. So one that comes to mind is women abuse, and it comes to either financial, it could be physical, it could be sexual. It doesn't really matter. But from a woman abuse, definitely. Femicide is something that has um, increased over the years. And I know I just moved in Kenya for 2 years ago, so it's something that's very prevalent, unfortunately. And because also we live in a society whereby I think it's lack of a better word, where men have a little bit more power because they're the heads of the household or
A
what.
male-dominated society.
Correct, correct. So women either fear in terms of vocalizing, and this usually happens mostly in the rural areas because they don't have the information.
Okay.
They don't know who to turn to. Even if they turn to the police, they just say, you must respect your husband or just keep it in the family.
Keep it
See,
quiet.
which comes from culture. So norm therapy definitely is needed in Kenya.
What about South Africa?
Oh, same issue. So same thing as well.
Been there
There's a
quite.
lot of, I'm trying to find a better word whereby there's a lot of women are being killed by somebody within women and children, not necessarily just women, children. Women and children are mostly killed more often than not in South Africa. So whether it's
So
in South Africa,
femicide is a big deal there as well.
excuse me,
Femicide is a big deal there as well.
definitely, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
a lot of male-dominated societies where they've not adopted the psychology of abuse and how to deal with it. Oftentimes, women die over jealousy and over principles like not conforming to what a man thinks a woman should be and not what a woman actually is. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the incidence of that in your countries that you frequent and know well, and why norm therapy could help them?
so just recently I was watching our documentary on YouTube, and it's because of a certain, Kenyans are well known to have marathons. We're good, we're great. We're fantastic in marathons. So women who participate and earn a lot of money because they're based in a town called Eldoret. So everyone in that particular town aspired to be part of the marathon or be as great as a marathon. So when women participate in being marathon, they win obviously money. And
Mhm.
because probably they have a husband or a boyfriend, the boyfriend tries to control the woman's finances and even the way she behaves. You should not be doing this. But you understand, being an athlete, you have to have other people to be able to assist you. But because the woman is bringing more money in the relationship, she's getting a little bit of more uh,
notoriety and
Correct.
acceptance and
Correct.
access than her male counterpart or
Correct.
her
So
partner, I should say.
correct. So that jealousy comes in, and because sometimes there's lack of information or lack of support from the woman's perspective, in terms of information, you need to handle your finances like this. And what the male domination comes in because the man is the head of the house. You need to listen to your husband. So unfortunately, because of those dynamics, and the husband tends to kill the woman. And it's well known in Kenya that unfortunately some of these women die in the hands of their partner or their husband.
But
So
if there's a perceived threat, I'm sorry, if there's a perceived threat of him being made to look less than her, and he perceived that as not as a good thing, like I have a good woman doing great things and bettering our family to include me, but yet my ego or
yes,
my male chauvinistic or male dominated societal norms have me to hurt her, abuse her, cessate her ability to do things or stop her from doing things because it may make me look smaller than her. So they're killed for these reasons, is what you're saying.
correct, correct. And also the lack of support. Because obviously, handling so much money, you can only depend on one person, probably your husband or your boyfriend. And because I think also the age, because they start being an athlete at a younger age. So the maturity, also the information is not necessarily there. So definitely norm therapy is going to be a huge help to that side of as well.
I'll just ask you one more question about that, then we move over to another topic because this is fascinating. If women are ill-equipped at such a young age, especially in the athletic world, or even the normal system of marriage in some countries, maybe even Kenya, where they marry very young, if they're ill-equipped to deal with men of maturity or men who may not have the maturity but the age, and they're killed, is that a widely acceptable policy with the police and the government? Or is this isolated in the pockets of the suburbs or the rural areas? How is this prevalent in Kenya?
So it's not necessarily one fact that I can mention. It's multifaceted, and
Okay.
one is definitely culture.
Okay.
So a woman, and I'm lack of a better word, is it's the woman is taught to behave in a certain way in a society.
Yes.
Okay. So when you're married or when you have a boyfriend or whatever the case may be, there isn't either it's fear or you're going to be judged. There's, like I said, it's multifaceted. So it's not necessarily pointing to one thing. So I think culture might be one, but it's broken down in different parts. So I don't want to say it's generally lack of support or generally lack of information. Culture is one thing, but has different factors that's connected to culture.
So, let's say there's a variety of reasons why this happens. I remember I was in a Caribbean island for a while, and they used to have these huge billboards up. It's very prevalent throughout the Caribbean, through Central South America, and a few other places around that area. But what I found was they would have these huge billboards, and it'd be like in October, and it'll say 720 women killed by the hand of their husband this year. And then around Christmas time, it's 800 people. So it's constantly going. And then they started from zero January 1st. It was a thing in some of these countries where you can monitor and track how many women were killed that year for the same kinds of reasons that you're discussing here. So it's very prevalent around the world and pervasive. It's everywhere. Um, what do you think norm therapy can do to help if you had to give your opinion? Teach women and men what?
One, there's help. I I think it's, when you have a problem, it's who do you turn to? Okay. because there's always that judgment, and that's why I mentioned culture might be probably a more prevalent factor, but it's just that help, knowing that I can call somebody or I can speak to somebody. Who can I find? So I think first finding that information to be able to know, whatever the case may be, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mother or sister, it doesn't really matter. But as long as you know there's help,
You're not alone. They don't
you're
feel
not
alone.
alone. Correct, correct. Because women, especially, I'm not saying men don't get affected, but from a woman's perspective, is that especially if you're facing financial abuse, you can sort it out, and probably they can speak to the religious leader.
Yes.
You can't go back. You can't go back to your mother. Your mother is say, okay, listen. She say, speak about it, persevere.
Yes.
But you're lucky if you have that support whereby, okay,
Survive.
what can we do? What we can help. So I think it's finding that you're not alone. I think that's the basis or the
Well,
basic.
well, yeah, one of the major tenets about norm therapy that I enjoy is that we understand, you and I, because you're a norm therapist, we understand one thing that most people don't know, that there's one underlying theme with all abuse, whether it's financial, physical, bullying, whether it's sexual, there's child abuse, there's an underlying theme that exists in all abuse, and it's fear. Abuse is operated on the premise of fear, and it's fueled by fear. And
Correct.
I think that in a place where a woman, especially like you're saying in Kenya, where they don't have where to turn for the most part, and feel like they can be courageous or to find the courage or the energy even to muster their fear into a place where they can control it. And we do teach about that to our victims and survivors, as well as our norm therapists in norm therapy, how to not only deal with those scary situations, but how to respond to them instead of react. So we, of course, this, I'm just preaching to the choir, but for the edification of our viewers, I think it's important that people know that once they overcome the fear in whatever it is that's happening to them, abuse-wise, and most often in life otherwise, it doesn't matter the circumstance. Once you overcome fear, and I don't mean become courageous and become a cowboy and just yeehaw, I can handle anything. No, but to control your fears to the point where they don't become obstacles or retardants for your progress or your success in getting out of that relationship or changing the dynamic of that relationship, where it's no longer toxic or hurtful to you. Um, what's your favorite part about when you're in a session and you're providing advice or whatever that circumstance? What do you get out of helping other people? That's really what I want to ask you. What do you get out of it?
The lessons, because there's empathy. I believe during one of the trainings, we all have backpacks. And that's one of the things that you learn if once you take the norm therapy training. Everyone has a backpack. So I try and be empathetic to the other person, because there are also lessons whereby you can learn from them,
Yes.
or based on the experiences you can share. There's a light bulb. It's okay, I used to go through that. Okay, now I understand why you're going through that. But there's also a place of connection, because once you connect with the victim and survivor, you're able to not necessarily provide them with the knowledge, because they themselves has to go through clarity, assessment, and truth.
Yes,
We
that's
cannot,
right. Yes.
correct, we cannot be spoon feeders. So for me, it's the lessons, because each and every session that I've gone through, there's something that I'm learning from them, or I'm trying to teach them something, but not necessarily giving them that information.
You get more out of it sometimes than they do, because
Correct.
it's been scientifically proven that when you help someone, oftentimes if the help is good, bad, or we're still seeing or still going to work it out, whether it'll work or not, that effort that you put into helping someone normally gratifies you more than it gratifies them.
Yeah, correct.
People don't know how to articulate that in their own lives to know that when they see their child, eating their full meal because they were sick and now they need to eat to regain their strength, and the mom or the dad or whomever is feeding the child gets more out of that than the child eating the food, because that's how gratitude works. Gratitude is not about the person just being pleased and happy that it happened. We teach this in norm therapy as well. We have entire modules based on how to feel, or how should you feel. How do you know what your normal is if you've never been normal? How do you know? And people have a great misunderstanding. At least some people have a great misunderstanding with norm therapy. They think that when we say norm therapy, we're trying to create a norm for somebody. That's not what we're doing. What we're actually doing is helping you find your norm, because everyone has a different norm. Your norm is different from mine, different from Kelly's, different from the patient. So we try to help people find their norm, their own norm. How, and especially if they, had narcissistic parents, then they marry a narcissistic guy or girl, and then they divorce that person, and then they have 3 or 4 more girlfriends or boyfriends who are narcissistic. They've never known normal. They don't have a clue. They're 30-something years old and they don't know that, they're narcissistic tended. They have no idea because that's all they've ever been around. So sometimes it's a struggle for us to work very hard in this way. I think you're very clever at how you figure people out. I think that what people always are trying to understand about norm therapy is what kind of people are we looking for? And you notice in one of our other interviews, I talked to Nicole about that, as well as Kim, the manager of the department. Nicole, of course, being the head of, you work with her as well, the head of hiring there at Norm Therapy and at Arrow. And the kind of people we're looking for are just like you, who kind of see the world, and then can cut their eye a little left to go, there's something more to that. You said it earlier, and I dug it when you said it. You said culture it makes everything happen. And what people don't know is culture dictate people. People don't dictate culture. And when culture dictates someone or something or some idea or some phenomena like femicide in Africa, when it dictates that, it only takes a whole lot of action on behalf of the people to kind of shift that culture into the different understanding, maybe 1 generation, 2 or 3 or 4 generations down the road. It doesn't happen overnight. Anyway, I can get on my soapbox all day. Do you uh, uh, have plans to ever get married?
I'm laughing at I'm laughing at this because if my mom and dad would be sitting here, they will be waiting for that.
Yeah, but I want to know, because if
I would
you
hope I would hope to get married. Yes.
okay, so you are planning on getting married because you're such a serious woman, and I think it would be scary. Oh, because people don't know we teach a lie detection course during the norm therapy. And so people come out looking at body language, looking at all kinds of things, gestures, flinching and all that. And it's kind of hard to lie to you nowadays, isn't it?
You know what? I would say it's a work in progress because, once you, especially with the people that you're close with, we tend sometimes to ignore those observations. But when you look at someone new, you're really, sometimes you even switch off, not necessarily listening, but you're looking at the observation and you say, that was not necessarily a good conversation, or that was a bad conversation. I said, let me not waste my time. I think let's just move on. So I would say I have the tools. I'm able to identify to make those observations. So it's really helpful.
I wasn't trying to be male chauvinistic. I was just thinking
No.
that if you get married to some guy over there who is not as with the personality and the strength and the character that you have, and then you have this ability to just look at him and say he's lying to me and be right. I wonder what kind of guy would that be? What kind of guy wants to go home to that. Like, oh, I was not with the,
Oh, now
was
you
not
want me
with
to, I'm going now you want me to share all my tricks what I usually do.
knock yourself out. Now, hey, listen, we're trying to educate people on the not only the types of people we have at Norm Therapy, because you have a great personality. The work environment I think we have at Norm Therapy and Arrow is stellar. I mean, it's one of the best working
Thank
environments
you.
people anywhere in the world. And I'll put Norm Therapy Arrow up against any Fortune 500 culture, and I think we treat each other wonderfully. Great communication, a whole lot of things. An amazing place to work and be involved, and people actually care there. But we got some tough cookies out there like you and Louisa, also Kenyan, um, who and then you have this soft spoken Kim, the manager. Kim is so soft spoken, but when she speaks, it's powerful. It is just powerful. And so men fear that. I know men who fear women this way. They fear the powerful woman who opens her mouth and says what she, mean what she says, and not take any of their crap. That's becoming more and more needed in our societies to prevent abuse. So I'm just wondering about you and if you got married and how does marriage work in a culture where a woman is much stronger intellectually, socially, and professionally than her male counterpart or female counterpart, depending on what country you're in.
I would say it's accepted, to be honest, but
Good.
also I think probably I'll end up sounding like a broken telephone. Culture. So I think there is a way forward whereby there is some acceptance where there is a woman can be able to do certain things,
Mhm.
hold a CEO job or being very vocal about it. And what you mentioned about fear is what usually prevents those men from actually accepting this particular woman or this kind of woman.
You're
I
intimidated.
would say correct. But also, it's also the lack of probably looking at a bigger picture. For example, what we mentioned earlier, whereby the man, there's that fear that the man is not going to be seen as the head of the house because the woman is bringing more money, but doesn't look, she's bringing more money for the benefit of my family.
Exactly.
So that kind of fear
Shame.
that he's not seen as the head of the house anymore.
It's shameful. It's very shameful.
Correct. It's shameful towards him. So it's that judgment. The other men will say, you're not being seen as the man of the house because the woman she's not supposed to bring in more money. You should control her or whatever the case might be. So I think it's just fear, culture, as I mentioned earlier. So it is accepted. I would like to believe it is accepted and there is progress, but there still needs to be a lot of development. Yes.
So as we spread throughout the world, as you're a norm therapist, you're in Kenya, so we have norm therapists everywhere on every continent now that we've been training. But as we grow into the huge numbers, let's say one day we have 1 million or 2 million norm therapists in the world. Um, do you see that making a difference there in Kenya and in Africa at large?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because fear sometimes is brought by the lack of knowledge, the lack of information. Okay.
Yes,
So if we can bring not necessarily, and I don't want to say yes, we target victims as survivors. We also assist both men and women.
absolutely.
So we are
Both
not
are.
necessarily, yes, we need to say that we're not necessarily only offering help to women, but also men. So
Yeah.
if we can be able to offer that assistance, whether it's help or information, then we can be able to create a better society for everyone to be able to have a healthy relationship, to have a healthy communication, whether it's employer, employee, whether it's a sister to a mother or a father to a child or child to parents. It doesn't really matter what sort of relationship. Once we offer that help, that information, we can be able to create a better society for everyone.
Absolutely. Do you play sports? Did you run or anything earlier on in your life?
No.
Forget about it. How
Uh,
many do you have?
I tried tennis,
Okay,
but let's not go there.
no problem. Okay, how many siblings do you have?
We are five in the family.
Okay, and where do you fall?
I'm the firstborn. So
Also,
probably that's why the strictness comes in.
that pragmatism. And probably your mom looks at you and goes, "You're not me," because she don't see herself like you. She's like that. That's how it normally happens. Oh, you know, people. If you look at my father, it looks like he just spit me out. There's my son, just like that. We look alike. But when I see him, I don't see it. I don't see it at all. Everyone else in the world sees it, and they go, "Boy, you look just like your father." They'll say that to me today, but and I still don't see it. But I get where you're coming from, and your mom. I know the game. I know that routine. I know the game. But okay, tell us, is there something you want our audience to know? Because they're going to start asking questions here in a minute, and I want to kind of see what questions we have from them. Um,
So I think I would encourage everyone to go through the norm therapy because I usually do like an assessment, um, yearly assessment of the person I've become. And each and every year, I have grown, I have developed both personally and professionally, and not necessarily because of just non because of norm therapy. It just puts things into perspective because what I saw was normal was not necessarily normal, and I needed to have that clarity because it is me doing the hard work to be able to find the truth and to see what tools that I needed to be able to become a better person. And like you mentioned earlier, it's not something that is, it's growth. It's not like you start on January and February, you're going to be okay. It's
mhm.
literally growth. It may take years, it may take months.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own period of time. So anyone who's interested in home therapy, I definitely ask you to come through, whether you're a victim or survivor, please come through. We will provide with all the necessary information and join this uh, journey to making sure that you are a better person, a better human being for the society.
Who's one of your mentors in the world?
I don't have a mentor, but I'm gonna be very honest. Since I started working for Arrow, I think Kelly would be the first person I mirror some of the lessons or wisdom comes from you as well. But also along the way, uh, I enjoy being in the company of older generation, if that makes any sense, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of wisdom from there that I've come to revere and also acknowledge and appreciate.
Yeah.
So I don't have a mentor, to be honest. I look up to people, and based on that I put, or at least mirror from
That's
what they
that
say.
circumstance.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, and that's the way it serves you. And I'm pretty much the same way. It's hard for me to say, oh, well, such and such person is my mentor. That's hard for me to say. I don't think I've ever really said that in my life. But I do admire some pretty amazing people, and I sometimes try to live vicariously through them. And I've had people tell me they've done the same thing with me, so I do understand that dynamic. Um, where do you see yourself as we start to pay people well in norm therapy in the future after post funding? Where do you see yourself with norm therapy?
Or definitely being in the ground, doing the groundwork, especially from women, children abuse, or any kind of abuse, but involves women and children. Because I see, and I think it comes from a cultural point of view, especially from the society I come from, they need that help. They
Yeah,
need that information to be able to know that there's help to be assisted that is needed and who they can be able to turn to. because even sometimes,
Early stage support.
correct, yes, yes, correct.
And children being our most vulnerable of all, I think, and from human traffic to sexual abuse to physical abuse, and adults normally at the hands of adults, not other children. How do we how do we how do we measure up as an organization to tackle on that issue, if you will? Can you share with the audience what you believe? Are we capable of handling that?
I think we're capable of doing that. I know in terms of statistics, it takes a grown-up to be able to report it. Because that child, whether it's has been groomed not to tell, because obviously out of fear, I think it's only a brave child that knows what needs to be done and says that's not acceptable. So I think it's the grown-ups. And once the grown-ups, or rather the parents, are provided with that information, then we can be able to assist from a child abuse. Because sometimes I watched a video on YouTube the other day whereby a mother, it was really sad, sold her child at 18 years because of food.
Of what? Yeah.
The mother gave up, there was some sort of arrangement, there was exchange of money, whereby the mother sold the child for food.
Because she couldn't afford to feed her
She
child.
couldn't she couldn't provide the basics.
Yes,
And
I've heard of many cases like that around the world.
yes, and it's very disheartening.
It is.
But and the fact, because of desperation, because it's basics, that woman did that. Let's just to end the story. There's some sort of reconciliation, but you can imagine the impact that had this. She's now a grown woman, 12 years later, or whatever the period of time. She doesn't understand why my mother sold, in quotes, me. So I think I go back to what I said. Just the information. When somebody knows there is help, whether it's a billboard, you need to dial a number, you need to go to a person. Because I believe in a community of women whereby, especially from a femicide, whether you're a stranger, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, if just one person has that information, we can be able to spread that information, knowing that somebody's being assisted. If you need help, we are going to go there. Even if the women themselves have to be able to assist that person, I think we can do it.
I think so as well. No, go ahead, please.
And then of course we can get the other necessary stakeholders, whether it's police, whether it's a clinic, whatever the case may be. We can educate them as well. But as long as we have the base information, help, I know it sounds unrealistic, but I think we can believe it.
No, I think it's very realistic. I think it's very realistic because that's what we like. We like to inundate and massively deploy resource throughout the world of access to us. So, and to our organization and our norm therapists and other parts of and the partnerships we'll be developing, that we're already developing right now with different shelters and different funds and NGOs and food programs and so forth. All of that goes with it too. It just isn't, let's counsel everybody. We want to be able to provide people all of the tools that they need in order to ameliorate or make better their life. That's what our ultimate goal is. So we're not just saying, norm therapy is it, and we're going to treat you and then you're going to be better. Because that woman who's standing outside of your clinic with kids in trail and her eye is bloody and her lips are bloody and she's looking for a place, to feed her kids or to sleep tonight, or those are the things. She needs clothes on her back. And will her kids go to school tomorrow? That's what she's thinking of. Not, hey, come in the office and sit down and let me talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not thinking about that. So yes, we have to be very omnidirectional in what we do. So we meet all the needs around that survivor or that victim. I think that's a very good point you made. That's of course, that's part of our business model forward. But I just want to thank you for being here today. And I think that I got a question now, another question. I know you've mentioned this before throughout the interview, but I'll ask you, they just got a question from the audience. What's the most important component to you that has helped you the most with norm therapy?
The three tenets, and I'm going to mention again, especially from norm therapy, is clarity, assessment, and truth. The most important component for me is the clarity, because my norm is not necessarily similar to your norm or somebody else. So somebody will narrate something to me and I say, no, that's not necessarily, it's not necessarily acceptable. There's something wrong about it. So for me, it's clarity. And once you have that clarity, I think it goes with self-awareness, which is one topic that we definitely go through the norm therapy, because once you become self-aware, you look at the world very differently.
Really do. Yes.
And there's no judgment, because remember, we all have different backpacks.
Exactly.
So there's an empathy aspect, but there's also something you have to make a decision. So for me, clarity is like, yes, I'm wearing glasses, but when I wear a new pair of glasses,
Clarity of mind.
yes, and also
clarity
mind.
of circumstances, clarity of who you are.
Correct.
Listen, I wish we could talk all night, Eve, but I got to read these announcements real quick, and I'm thanking you very much for being here, but give me 1 second. Hello, everyone, back again. Sorry about the echoes before I found out what it was. Apologize. If you enjoyed and got something out of today's session, please show your support by sharing this video, subscribing to our channel, liking it, and of course, making some comments. They go a long way. Please go to goarrow.org and normtherapy.com to explore our many opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone needing our services. If you're interested in applying to participate in our live sessions as a guest, victim, survivor, or on a guest show like today we have with Eve, please reach out at contact@normtherapy.com. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday, April 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, U.S., where I'll be interviewing Smita Bhupatirashu. Wonderful, right person. You're going to enjoy her. She's a norm therapist as well. Hope you're well. Eve, you would like to close us out now or what?
No. I thought we are only starting, but thank you very much, everyone. We hope to see you join Arrow. And like we said, clarity, assessment, and truth, and what we believe. And we hope to see you to join and take part in the norm therapy training. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you very much, Eve. I'll see you around our next meetings over the next few days, so it's okay. But I want to share with everybody, those are our tenets, our core tenets that we live by at norm therapy: clarity. We clarify the circumstance, we then assess it, and then during that assessment process, we find truth. Not my truth or her truth, but your truth. And then we help you adjust to that truth. Thank you very much, Eve. I really enjoyed our session. I wish we could have talked about. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
You guys are.